my name is Maylin and welcome back to my channel. I'm a flutist, performer, and music teacher located in the city of Kamloops, British Columbia, and this is my channel where we learn all things flute. So thank you so much for joining me here today. In today's video, we're going to be going over Etudes number 17 and 18 in the 76 graded studies for the flute part 2, or part 1 I should say. So if you're interested, then just keep on watching. As always, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. I do my best to answer them as soon as I see them. Also, if you do have any issues when it comes to practicing, feel free to check out my free practice guide, also located in the description down below. It gives you 8 really easy steps to follow to help you to get a more structured practice session. Alright, so let's just get right into today's video. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be starting on Etudes 17 and 18, which is on page 7. So I'm going to put up number 17 right over here. And we'll do, of course, our first little starter bits before we get into clapping, counting the piece. So the first little starter bit we always go over is number 1, our key signature. So let's take a look between our treble clef and our time signature. We do see that we have one accidental, which is an F sharp. So that means that we are either in G major or E minor. So let's take a look at the first and the last notes to see if either of them give us an indication if we are in the major key or the minor key. We aren't starting on the tonic at the beginning. We do start on a B, but that is a major third in G major. It's part of that major triad. And then we do, however, end on a G. So again, we have a strong indication that we are in G major. We are always going to take a look and see if we can find the raised 7th. So again, E minor is a relative minor. So if we go down 1 semitone, that is a D sharp. So let's take a look and see if we do have any D sharps in here. So we don't see any D sharps, however we do have some C sharps in there, so just make sure we take note that they are there. So they may hint again at a different key signature, but I would say we are firmly in G major. Alright, so the next thing we're going to be looking at is our time signature. So we do have 2/4. So again, 2 represents the number of beats that we have per bar. So we have 2 beats per bar, and then the bottom number tells us what kind of note it is. So 4 represents a quarter note, so that means we have 2 quarter notes per measure. Alright, and the third thing we're going to look at is our tempo indication, our dynamics, and articulation. So we're going to first take a look at that tempo indication. So we are playing at a moderato tempo, so that's moderately. Again, here we have the tempo marking written out for us. So the end goal is going to be quarter note equals 120. Let's take a look at those dynamics. So we are going to start on a forte. Essentially, we don't have any dynamic changings from the beginning until bar 17. So again, whenever you see something like that, feel free to explore a little bit with the dynamics. If there's anything that you want to change, you can always go ahead and do that and make your own. But when we get to bar 17, make sure you do come back down to P, which is piano, so that we do have that really nice, beautiful crescendo all the way up into bar 20. And then we do have a decrescendo coming down all the way to bar 25. And that 25, we do have 2 hairpins. So that means we crescendo, decrescendo, crescendo, decrescendo. And then after that second decrescendo at bar 29, we're going to crescendo all the way to the end. We're going to end with a nice forte. And then now we're going to be looking at the articulation. So here, if you look at the first 3 bars, we have essentially the entire articulation that we're going to be repeating throughout the piece. So we have 1 staccato with the 8th note, staccato 8th. We have a tenuto, so that is the long line on top. So that means that you want to hold that note for its full value, so making sure that you don't cut it short. And then we have another 8th note with the staccato over top. So essentially that's going to be the entire piece. When you do have a quarter note or a half note, the quarter notes you're going to be playing a full valued quarter note, and then all your half notes you're going to have a nice breath accent. So again, the little ha, just to give it a little extra oomph. And then the last thing we're going to be looking at is our roadmap. So that's number 4. And I don't see any repeat lines here, and I don't see any DCL coda or anything like that. So we're just going to be reading it from top to bottom. Perfect. So now that we have gone through our first 4 starter bits, now we're going to get into the clap and count. So with this one, you really want to make sure that you do get that correct 8th quarter 8th counted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at a quarter note equals 70. So we'll clap that, we'll play that on the flute, and then I'll also play it at the final tempo here for you. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 2, and 1, 2, 1 and 2, and 1, 2, 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2, and 1, 2, 1 and 2, and 1, 2, 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1, 2, 1, rest. All right, so of course that one can be a little bit tricky. So again, take your time with this. If you feel like it is really tricky, slow it all the way down until you feel like you can clap it at a comfortable tempo without making any mistakes. And really making sure that if you feel uncertain, you can always write in the counting on top of the notes as well, so that when you are reading through, you can actually read 1 and 2 and. So just to confirm, that 8th note is starting on beat 1. We start that quarter note on the and of 1, playing the beginning of 2, and then that other 8th note is going to be the and of 2. So it would look like 1. If you wanted to write that, it would be a 1 over top of the first 8th and, so you can do plus 2 over that quarter note, and then the and again over the last 8th note. All right, now we're going to play that on the flute. So this is going to be a quarter note equals 70. 1, 2, 1, and very nice. So that should be a fun etude to study. Again, if you feel like with the articulation, it's a little bit tricky for you to remember, always feel free to write them down so that you don't forget anything. Okay, now we're going to be doing it at the final tempo here. So again, the metronome's going to be at a quarter note equals 120. All right, so here's the clap and count. 1, 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, rest. Very nice. So again, that can be a really great little challenge for you at the final tempo. Again, this might take you a long time to get from around that 70 beat per minute mark to the 120 mark, and that's totally okay. Take as long as you need, again, moving that metronome slowly up to get to this tempo. And now I'll be playing that with the flute. 1, 2, 1, and... Very nice. So again, take your time getting up to that faster tempo by again starting at the tempo where you feel like you're not making very many mistakes or no mistakes at all, and then slowly moving that metronome, marking up a few clicks every single day. All right, now we're going to be going on to etude number 18, so I'm going to put that up right over here. So we'll go through our first 4 starter bits before we start the piece. So of course we're going to look at number 1, our key signature. So we don't see any accidentals here, so that means we can either be in C major or A minor. So let's take a look at the first note and the last note to see if we get the tonic of either one of those keys. And we do start and we end on an A, so let's get a strong indication that we are starting in A minor. Let's take a look and see if we can find a consistent amount of that raised 7. So that would be, again, starting on A, going down 1 semitone, that would be a G sharp. So I do see a lot of G sharps in here. We do have a hint of an F sharp, which is that raised 6 as well on bar 10. So I would say we are in A minor, which we are. Wonderful. So now we're going to be looking at number 2, our time signature. So we do see that we are in 3/4, so that means the top number tells us how many beats we have per bar. So we have 3 beats per bar. The bottom number tells us what note type those beats will be. A 4 represents a quarter note, so that means we have 3 quarter notes per measure. So don't forget with this one that with 3/4 we do have the emphasis on beat 1, so it always has that nice waltzy feel or like a wheel, so it should feel like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, then number 3, we're going to be looking at our tempo indication, articulation, and dynamics. So we are going to start again first with that tempo indication. So we are con moto, so that means with motion. Eventually, or the final tempo will be a quarter note equals 132. Let's look at our dynamics now. So we're going to start at an MF, which is mezzo forte, which means moderately loud. We don't have any other markings until bar number 4, where we do have that forte there, so make sure you play loudly. Bar 6, we have a deep crescendo going into piano at bar 7. And then we have a nice crescendo at bar 10, so we're going to crescendo all the way to a forte at bar 13, playing forte all the way until bar 15, where you come down again very suddenly to piano, where again you're going to build crescendo, crescendo, crescendo all the way up to bar 19, where we play forte all the way until the end. Articulation wise, we are playing a majority of these slurred. When we do have the staccatos, they are under that slur. So again, making sure that there is a little bit of a detachment between the notes around that note when you tongue it, but otherwise everything is going to be slurred. And then number 4, we're going to be looking at our roadmap. So let's see if we do have any weird roadmap things here. I don't see any repeat signs or codas, so we're just playing from top to bottom. Now this is going to be a really interesting piece because we do actually switch time signatures here a lot. So just make sure that you do take note of that. So we have 3/4, then we switch back to 2/4, 3/4, all the way through the piece. So with this one, I would actually highly recommend, if you have a physical copy of this piece, that you actually highlight a color for 3/4 and then a special color for 2/4, just so it's easier for you to see when you're reading through the piece. So we're actually going to start at a quarter note equals 66 here, because it is really tricky counting between the two time signatures. So again, a quarter note is going to equal 66. 1, 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1. Rest. 1, and 2, 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, and 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, and 2, 1, and 2, 1, and 2, 1, and 2, 3, and 1, and 2, and 3. 1, 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 and 2, 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1. Rest. 1, and 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, and 2. Rest. All right, so this one I found I had a lot of trouble when I first started learning this. So again, if this even feels too fast for you to start, feel free to go back into the playback settings, click on the gear, and then slow it down until you get to a tempo where you feel like you're not making a ton of mistakes. This one for sure is really tricky, so make sure you take your time with this and get it so that you do feel quite comfortable with it before you pick the flute up. All right, so now I'm going to be doing that with the flute. Again, if you do have any uncomfortableness with those notes as well, since we're not really used to playing in A minor a lot, feel free to write in your note names here as a reminder. 1, 2, and So that is definitely going to be the trickier piece out of the two. So again, take your time, really make sure that you feel comfortable with this, and really slowly increasing this until you get to the final tempo. And speaking about the final tempo, now we are going to clap and count it at a quarter note equals 132. 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Press. 1 and 2, 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3, 1 and 2, 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Rest. 1 and 2 and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2. Rest. All right, so that's definitely going to be a great challenge for you. Again, slowly working up to this tempo. And now we'll play that with the flute as well. 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and that should be a really great little study for you. Again, that might take you 2 weeks to learn. It might take you a month, it might take you 2 months. Take as long as you need in order for you to really feel comfortable with your progress. And again, a little bit every day is better than not at all. And just trying to learn it all at once, like 1 time or even 2 times a week. Just a little bit every day and you'll see a lot of improvement. Alright, so that's going to be it for today's video. As always, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. I do my best to answer them as soon as I see them. And also, if you're having issues with practicing and you just need a little bit of help, check out my free practice guide, also located in the description down below. As always, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, night, or whatever it is that you're watching this. And as always, happy fluting!